Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's Wacky Wednesday. I kind of have a wacky news story, and I'm sure we can discover new things about the Squeal of Fortune here on another episode. Today on Before Coffee. Missing F-35 pilot called 911. No idea where my plane is.
And NASA retrieves asteroid samples for the first time.
German police carry out sweeping raids as neo-Nazi groups are banned.
As a judge finds Trump liable for fraud, we explore the Squeal of Fortune.
British Museum releases images in bid to recover missing items.
And it is National Crush a Can Day. That's right, get out there and crush some cans. For today, September 27th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. All right, let me go find a can of crush. I don't know if I have any cans. I don't even buy cans anymore.
Alright, first news story. This is my wacky news story. The American pilot who lost his fighter jet last Sunday after using his ejection seat appears to have called an emergency number 911 to get help. The telephone conversation with the stunned operator has been released by the police. Ma'am, a military plane has crashed. I am the pilot. Emergency services must be called, the caller says in the call. I have no idea where my plane is. It must have crashed somewhere. I used my ejection seat. It's still not known why the police decided to abandon his plane, or the pilot decided to abandon his plane over the state of South Carolina. The U.S. military was without the F-35, also known as the JSF, for more than a day. It turned out that he had crashed in a field 100 kilometers away. The pilot landed almost unscathed with his parachute in the garden of a house near Charleston. The surprised resident then called the emergency number with him. We have a pilot here who landed in my backyard. Can we get an ambulance, please? The pilot adds that he is apparently not seriously injured, but does have some scratches and a problem with his back. The woman on the other end of the line sounds incredulous as she tries to get more information. When she asks why the pilot left his fighter jet, he only replied, "Problems with the aircraft." She responds negatively to his questions whether there has been any report of a crash. There is a lot of criticism that the Defense Department lost a hyper-modern aircraft costing 75 million euros for a day, and that the fighter jet could apparently fly dozens of kilometers without an occupant. A defense spokesperson speculates that the modern technology on board may have contributed to this. The aircraft is designed to fly stably if a pilot does not take controls. This prevents a crash if the pilot becomes unwell. In addition, the F-35 is equipped with the latest stealth technology, which makes the aircraft difficult for radar to track. In addition, as a precaution, the transponders turn off when the pilot leaves the aircraft in the air, to make it more difficult for the enemy to find the aircraft. But also more difficult for them to find the aircraft. It's probably already landed by now, or they found it, or it's crashed, because this was from Friday. But for a day, this plane was just like, who needs a pilot? I don't need one of those. Yeah, if they're gonna do that, they should also have a program where you can tell it to land itself. Use like a onboard camera to scan the ground and say there's a landing strip, and then just land somewhere. Automated. So funny to me.
And it doesn't show up in radar because it's radar scattering. Gotta really look for it.
That's your story.
That's my story.
Yeah.
There's been planes that have depressurized and the pilot's dead, and they keep flying. That's happened. And the passengers die too because the plane's depressurized. No oxygen, in other words. No way to keep oxygen inside of it. Are you there? Hello, everybody. It is time for NASA's news as NASA retrieves an asteroid samples. This is from AP News. Marcia Dunn. And she's done a good, fine story, Marcia has. Elation as NASA's first asteroid samples land on Earth. NASA's first asteroid samples fetched from a deep space parachute into a Utah desert on Sunday to cap a 7-year journey. Sorry we're late reporting on this, but we pick and choose our stories, and we end up with 2 stories a day. So, and a flyby by
there's not a bunch of wacky news going on every day, you know. So
yeah, this isn't really wacky news. It's just out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah.
And a flyby of Earth, the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft released a sample of capsule from 63,000 miles out. The small capsule landed 4 hours later on a remote expanse of military land as the mothership set off after another asteroid. We have a touchdown, Mission Recovery Operations announced, immediately repeating the news since the landing occurred 3 minutes early. Officials said the orange-striped parachute opened 4 times higher than anticipated, around 20,000 feet, basing it on the deceleration rate. To everyone's relief, the capsule was intact and not breached, keeping its 4.5 billion-year-old samples free of contamination. Boy, indigestion. Within 2 hours of a touchdown, the capsule was inside a temporary clean room at the Defense Department's Utah Test and Training Range, hoisted there by a helicopter. The sealed sample canister will be flown on Monday to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, where it will be opened in a new specially designed lab. The building already housed hundreds of pounds of moon rocks gathered by the Apollo astronauts. We can't wait to crack into it. For me, it's the real science. It's just beginning, said the mission's lead scientist, Dante Loretta of the University of Arizona. He'll accompany the samples all the way to Texas. Lori Glaze, NASA's Planetary Science Division Director, added, "These are going to be a treasure for scientific analysis for years and years and years. Not just years and years, but years and years and years." Scientists estimate that the capsule holds at least a cup of rubble from the carbon-rich asteroid known as Bennu. We won't know for sure until the containers open in a day or two. Some spilled and floated away when the spacecraft scooped up too much material, which jammed the container's lid during the collection 3 years ago. Japan, the only other country to bring back samples, gathered about a teaspoon during a pair of asteroid missions. A teaspoon. The pebbles and dust delivered on Sunday represent the biggest haul from the moon beyond the moon. Preserved building blocks from the dawn of our solar system. The samples will help scientists better understand how Earth and life formed, providing an extraordinary glimpse of 4.5 billion years ago, said NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. So, like that plane that was just flying around with no pilot, these just been drifting through the cosmos for at least 4.5 billion years, smacking into anything. OSIRIS-REx, the mothership, rocketed away on the $1 billion mission in 2016. It reached Bennu 2 years later, and using a long stick vacuum, grabbed rubble from the small, roundish space rock in 2020. By the time it returned to the spacecraft, had logged 4 billion miles, or 6.2 billion kilometers. At a news conference several hours later, Loretta said he broke into tears of joy upon hearing that the capsule's main parachute had opened. "I knew he made it home," he said, so overwhelmed with emotion when he arrived at the scene that he wanted to hug the capsule, sooty but undamaged and not even bent.
Sooty.
Flight controllers and spacecraft builder Lockheed Martin stood and applauded the touchdown from their base in Colorado. NASA cameras' views showed the charred capsule upside down in the sand with its parachute disconnected and strewn nearby as the recovery team moved in via helicopters. "Boy, did we stick that landing," Loretta said. "It didn't move, didn't roll, it didn't bounce, it just made a tiny little divot in the Utah sand." British astronomer Daniel Brown, who is not related to the Da Vinci Code guy, who is not involved in the mission, says he expects great things from NASA's large sample of return since the Apollo moon landings more than half a century ago. With these asteroid samples, we are edging closer to understanding its early chemical composition, the formation of water, and the molecules life is based on, he added from Nottingham Trent University. One OSIRIS-REx team member was in England rehearsing for a concert tour. My heart's there with you. As the precious sample is recovered, Queen's lead guitarist Brian May, who is also an astrophysicist, said in a pre-recorded message, "Happy Sample Return Day." All right, so we got rock and roll involved.
I didn't know he was a rocket scientist.
Oh yeah, he was an astrophysicist. You know that song 39? That was written by Brian May. Well, sung by Brian May too, and it's about space travel. It's about time travel. Anyway, because he's an astrophysicist. Engineers examined the canister holds up to 250 grams of material from Bennu, plus or minus 100 grams. Even at the low end, it's easily surpassed the minimum requirement of the mission. Will take a few weeks to get a precise measurement, said NASA's lead curator Nicole Lunning. NASA plans a public show until in October. Currently orbiting the sun, which is 50 million... Sorry, let me start over. Currently orbiting the sun 50 million miles from Earth, Bennu is about 1/3 of a mile across, roughly the size of the Empire State Building, but shaped like a spinning top. It's believed to be the broken fragment of a much larger asteroid. During a 2-year study, OSIRIS-REx found Bennu to be a chunky rubble pile full of boulders and craters. The surface was so loose that spacecraft vacuum arms sank a foot or two into the asteroid, sucking more material than it anticipated. Close-up observations may come in handy. Late next century, Bennu is expected to come dangerously close to Earth in 2182, possibly close enough to hit. The data gleaned by OSIRIS-REx will help with any asteroid deflection effort, according to Loretta. OSIRIS-REx is already chasing after the asteroid Ophiuchus, and will reach it in 2029. This was NASA's third sample return from a deep space robotic mission. The Genesis spacecraft dropped off bits of solar wind in 2004, but the samples were compromised when the parachute failed and the capsule slammed into the ground. The Stardust spacecraft successfully delivered comet dust in 2006. NASA plans to return samples from Mars are on hold after an independent review board criticized the cost and complexity. The Martian rover Perseverance has spent the past 2 years collecting core samples for eventual transport to Earth. So they're collecting them, but they don't know if they're going to bring them back. That's the story. A little long, but it's the story.
Okay, more rocks.
All right, and before we move on,
let's roll the wheel.
Spin the old squeal. So I'll let you spin it because I can't control it from here. So
all right, let's. Oh, I have a bunch of windows open. Give me a sec.
All right, I just got the one now. And
okay, let's spin the
squeal
of fortune. It's really hard to cue ourselves with that. So let's
squeal of fortune. There we go. Okay, then we get Roy Smith the Third.
No, Kathy Latham.
Kathy Latham. Didn't we do her already?
I don't know.
Spin it again. I forgot to take her off. Spin it again. All right. I think if not, we can come back to her. I think we did her already. Okay.
David Schaefer.
David Schaefer. Okay, let's look at David Schaefer. Your story.
Okay. In European news, Germany has decided to ban all neo-Nazi groups, every single one, cited as cult-like racists. Police have carried out raids across Germany as ministers announced a ban on far-right groups described as cult-like, deeply racist, and anti-Semitic association that sought to indoctrinate children with Nazi ideology. This is from Agence France Press in Berlin. Officers stormed a 26th apartment belonging to 39 members of the Arteg Gemeinschaft network in 12 states, including Bavaria, Baden-Württemberg, and Brandenburg. The association has about 150 members and has links to several far-right groups, said the Interior Ministry. It uses the cover of pseudo-religious Germanic belief in God to spread their worldview, which violates human dignity, said the ministry. Using Nazi-era literature, the association sought to convert young people to adopt its race theories. It has also operated an online bookstore that sought to radicalize and attract non-members. This is further blow against right-wing extremism and against the intellectual agitators who will still spread Nazi ideologies today, said the Interior Minister Nancy Faeser. This far-right group tried to raise new enemies of the Constitution through the disgusting indoctrination of children and youth, she added. Germany has banned a series of right-wing extremist groups in recent months. Last week, it outlawed the local chapter of the US-based Hammerskins neo-Nazi group, known for its white supremacist rock concerts. There are about 38,800 people in the right-wing extreme spectrum in Germany in 2022, according to a report presented in BFV Federal Domestic Intelligence Agency in June, up from the 33,900 in 2021. The number considered potentially violent also rose from 13,500 to 14,000. So there's my little short story about Germany is going around town collecting those neo-Nazis and saying, hey, not here, we're not doing that again. There's no repeat outcome for us, okay? We're zero again. Hashtag never again.
You guys are in a losing team, and there's consequences. Maybe next century, when everybody's forgotten all this thing, and who knows, right? An asteroid will hit us and straighten us out. All right, so we're going to go back to the School of Fortune story, and we're going to talk about a story about David Schaefer. And this is from CNN, if I can get it to CNN Politics, from about 6 days ago, so it's fairly recent. And waiting for it to be readable here. That never happened. Let's see. It never happened. Never got readable. All right, let me try it again. Gotta be quick before that pop-up window. All right, let's get up there. So we got a reading window. Fulton County prosecutors pushed back. This is against Marshall Cohen of CNN. Fulton County prosecutors pushed back against what they called borderline offensive claims that their 2020 election subversion case was fueled by anti-Donald Trump bias at a court hearing Wednesday for 3 indicted fake GOP electors. This is from last Wednesday. That's an accusation that 100% the state rejects, prosecutor Anna Cross said, adding that the racketeering case doesn't have anything to do with R or a D sitting next to someone's name. And that the Fulton County prosecutors would charge Georgians from any political party if they signed fake elector certificates. She was responding to the comments from an attorney representing former GOP chair David Schaefer, who led the delegation of 16 fake electors and one of the 3 facing state charges. His attorney, Craig Gillen, offered a searing rebuke of Fulton County District Fannie Willis, accusing her of targeting Republican electors simply for doing their civic duty. No, you're breaking the law, dude. Gillen decried the sad state of affairs in this country. He said that Americans who support former Donald Trump in any way should buckle up because you're in a danger zone. Yeah, you should be. He's a criminal. You're going to get indicted by this crowd. No, not just supporting somebody. You tried to fake the election, dude. Lawyers for the trio of fake electors were in federal court Wednesday to try to convince a judge to move the state prosecution to a...
Oh. Did he crash? Oh no, he crashed in the middle of the show. This is why we do it live, folks. Either his computer crashed or his internet failed, but he's just gone. I think his computer must have crashed. So, what can I do? Well, I'm gonna read what's happening in Europe today on the European live update as we wait for Raj to get back. Currently live, Slovakia. The Populist Party leading in Slovakia, poll shows. This live update is by Lily Bayer in Brussels on The Guardian. Former Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico's Smear's party has narrowed a lead ahead of the election on Saturday, according to a poll published late on Tuesday. The populist Smear party stands 18%, with the Liberal Progressive Slovakia coming second at 16.6%. Alas, a possible kingmaker formed by politicians who have left Fico Smear at 13.7%. A host of other parties are polling at 10% below. The far-right Republica is at 7.7%. Polling was conducted by the focus agency for TV Markiza. What else do we have? More readers weigh in. Peter writes from Bratislava, "It is going to be a great showdown in Slovakia on Saturday. It is hard to understand where the pro-Russian and pro-Orban feelings among the population stem from, but it is very concerning and disappointing, especially older people and pensioners who vote for the populist parties." Hello. Yeah, I figured that. I'm just reading some stories while you get back to it. It's important to mobilize voters in Slovakia so that pro-Russians don't win the election. In U.S. news, the American ambassador in Bratislava, Guatemala, said this week that he was been very clear with Robert Fico about the importance of continuing support for Ukraine. In an interview with Peter Delopulik, the editor-in-chief of the Slovak Spectator, the American diplomat said, "Fico as Prime Minister took his role as NATO seriously and maintained a relationship with the EU. Fico and I have multiple engagements, and I have been very clear to him from the U.S. perspective that 1. Ukraine is a national security issue for Slovakia as well as NATO, frankly, for Europe, which means it's the national security interest for the United States. I don't think Slovaks want Russian soldiers on their border. I don't think Slovaks want reimposition of the Iron Curtain. I don't think Slovaks want to fall under Russian tyranny again. And so I've been very clear to Fico about this, that it's important and imperative for Slovakia to continue supporting Ukraine. And secondly, to call for peace without also demanding the withdrawal of Russian forces from Ukraine is appeasement. This is what happened in 1938 when Adolf Hitler was appeased and the Czechs and Slovaks suffered. I've said this to Fico directly, with his mouth. Quoted, he said that, "Don't do another Hitler." Shocking that Smear sits with European socialist progressive politicians say. Martin Hosik, the vice president of Progressive Slovakia and member of the European Parliament, told The Guardian that the failure of the past government to deliver on its promises, combined with the mishandling of the COVID crisis and massive information on social media, have led to Robert Fico's rise in the polls. Progressive Slovakia is a member of the centrist Renew Europe group in the European Parliament, while Fico Smear sits with the socialist and democratic groups. Hosik said that what is shocking from a European context is that there is a Slovak member party of the Socialist and Democrats group openly lining themselves up with Putin, rejecting the military support for Ukraine and attacking the LGBTI community, so essentially going against the core values of their own political family in Europe. Yeah, that is quite odd. Don Healy's opinions is Slovakia's Saturday election is unlikely to end the political turbulence that has dogged the country since the murder of the journalists in 2018, but it could have serious ramifications for Ukraine. There's a really long explainer explaining everything that we need to know about the Slovakia elections. After 5 years of political upheaval, Slovakia will on Sunday hold a high-stakes but uncertain election that polls predict will be won by a populist former prime minister who has pledged to abandon Bratislavia's staunch support for Ukraine. Robert Fico has said he will not send another bullet to help defend his country's eastern neighbor from Russian aggression. labeled sanctions against Moscow as useless, and promised to veto any Ukrainian application to join NATO. Why? Why is he so... I don't get it. Is he getting paid by Putin under the table? Fico is far from certain to win. Even if he does, he will not have the majority in the 150-seat parliament and could face big problems forming coalition. Many experts also doubt he would prove as a radical in office as his campaign rhetoric suggests. But as they strive to maintain a united front and sustain financial and military support for Ukraine, Europe and the rest of the Western alliances are watching. So, this guy is not going to get majority, but we're still talking about him like he's going to get majority. Fico is a 59-year-old former smear in 1999 as a Social Democratic Party offering new faces and a fresh approach. Over the years, and especially in recent opposition, he and his party have become progressively more nationalist, radical, and socially conservative, even if their economic outlook remains left-wing. On the campaign trail, he has said Russia's war was started in 2014 by Ukrainian Nazis and fascists. He has been a long-term admirer of Hungary's Viktor Orban and has attacked his rivals ferociously, falsely alleged a coup plot, and claimed the vote would be rigged. Okay, this guy sounds like a complete and total psycho. In the past 10 years, however, he was a proved pragmatic, taking Slovakia into the euro and largely avoiding damaging showdowns with Brussels. Many suspect, given Slovakia's heavy dependence on EU markets and financial support, he would do so again. Yeah, it sounds like he suddenly took a complete 180 to his politics. Was he watching too much Facebook or whatever, and then you watch some Fox News and suddenly he's just pro-Russian. Fico's chief rival is the socially liberal, economically reformist, progressive Slovakia party of Michael Šimečka, an Oxford graduate and vice president of the European Parliament. His group is strongly pro-Western, pro-Europe, and pro-NATO. A possible kingmaker could be Pellegrini's Hellas, currently third, with which Smear could forge an alliance. It is also criticized, though much less vociferously, Slovakia's decision to send MiG and 29 fighters and missile systems to Ukraine. So what are the big issues? Slovakia voters are weary of economic pain from COVID restrictions, high inflation from Ukraine war, and a surge in illegal immigration. And Fico has campaigned largely on the country's chaotic government over the past 5 years. Despite several key smear politicians facing corruption charges, the party's central theme is a promise of order and stability, with Fico arguing that he has experience to overcome major challenges, for example in healthcare and infrastructure. Despite exploiting pro-Russian sentiment, only 40% of Slovaks hold Russia mainly responsible for the war, the lowest proportion in Central and Eastern Europe. He has also pandered to the socially conservative voters, making progressive values in general, and LGBTQ rights in particular a central issue. Are you ready? You got your story back up?
Yeah. Now I hear you again. I don't have my story though.
Okay, I'll keep reading.
All right.
While not a policy issue, disinformation has been a major feature of the campaign in a country that has long been receptive to pro-Russian narratives due to historical affinity, low levels of trust in public institutions, and politicians normalizing once fringe positions. Who's likely to win? Fico's party is about 18%, which is narrowly ahead of PS's 16.5%, and Hellas at 14%.
Oh.
The far-right Republic Party and Olono are both on about 8%, followed by half a dozen smaller parties, including SAS, on between 5 and 6%. So Fico's party might still win, but I think they probably have rules for how much percentage you have to have in order to have a majority. But did I read that and I didn't absorb it, or I maybe didn't read it at all?
Maybe. Well, reiterate it anyway. We must reiterate this part of the story because you want this to sink in. And I'm waiting for my Georgia prosecutor story. You want me to start it over?
Yeah, just start it over.
Okay, waiting for it to load, and whatever the reason is. I think I gotta stop. Sometimes you stop them and reload them, they roll faster. Down to one window, man. There's nothing else to load, Carl.
Need a new piece. Need a new PC, man.
Chrome. I think a big company like that can afford better browsers. Google Chrome's really falling down on the job here. Okay, here we go. Maybe.
And maybe you should use a different browser, like Firefox or something.
I am for the other stories, but this I figured I could just open a separate. It'd be easier to separate. Okay, because of the reading mode thing. All right. Georgia prosecutors push back against claims of anti-Trump bias at fiery hearings for 3 Georgia fake electors. This is our story from Marshall Cohen of CNN. Fulton County prosecutors pushed back against what they called borderline offensive claims that their 2020 election subversion case was fueled by anti-Donald Trump bias. Well, there's an anti-Donald Trump bias in the fact that he's a criminal and juries and judges are biased against criminals. All right, anyway, so we're having trouble with the computer restarting again. That's an accusation that's 100% this that 100% the state rejects, prosecutor Anna Cross said, adding that the racketeering case doesn't have anything to do with an R or a D sitting next to someone's name, and that the Fulton County prosecutors would charge Georgians from any political party if they signed fake elector certificates. She was responding to comments from an attorney representing former Georgia GOP chair David Schaefer, who's the winner of our Squeal of Fortune today, who led the delegation of 16 fake electors as one of the 3 facing state charges. His attorney Craig Gillen offered a searing rebuke. Searing? I don't think it's searing. He offered a defense. Gillen said the sad state of affairs in this country and that the Americans support Donald Trump should buckle up because you're in a danger zone. But that's just nonsense. If you support Donald Trump, you're just clueless. You're not going to jail. The lawyers for a trio of fake electors were in a federal court Wednesday to try to convince a judge to move the state prosecution to a federal system, which makes no sense at all. Schaefer, Georgia State Senator Sean Still, and former Coffee County GOP Chair Kathy Latham, who was their erroneously still left on her wheel, I think, are the latest defendants in the case to attempt this legal maneuver. They have all pleaded not guilty. If they succeeded, they have a better shot to get their charges dropped, or at least have more favorable conditions at a trial, but they'll face an uphill climb. Federal officials can move the state cases in the federal court where they can invoke immunity protection for U.S. government employees. These 3 were not federal officials in 2020. Instead, they were pushing a novel legal theory that they acted as contingent presidential electors under Trump's direction or pursuant to U.S. the Constitution and federal law spells out the electoral college process. Thus, they were essentially acting as federal officials and should be treated as such, their lawyers argued. Wow, what a reach. Man, you need like 5 or 6 extra arms for that reach. U.S. District Judge Steve Jones has already rejected a request from Trump's White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows to move his case from state to federal court, and Jones was skeptical at a Monday hearing on the same topic for Trump-era Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. He signaled Wednesday that he thinks past Supreme Court rulings undercut the fake electors' theory that they should be recognized as federal officers in their role in the electoral college process. There weren't even real electors, dude. How can you... What is wrong with people? How's this even a defense, really? How's this even a defense? Jones asked one of the Schaefer's lawyers if they wanted him to disregard the Supreme Court's comments in elector-related cases known as dicta. We don't think it applies in this context, Schaefer's lawyer Holly Pearson said. The judge responded, there's a dicta and then there's a Supreme Court dicta. It sounds like a dirty word. He didn't rule from the bench on Wednesday's hearing for the 3 GOP electors. Jones hasn't issued a ruling yet in the Clark matter. Trump is also expected to try to move his case. Meadows has appealed this decision in the case, claiming the judge ignored precedent and committed multiple errors. Georgia prosecutors wanted the case to stay in state court. Cross blasted the electors' legal theory, saying it was creatively crafted but not grounded in any fact or law. It was a fantasy and nonsense. that the outcome of the Georgia presidential election was still being seriously contested by December 14th, 2020, when electors were required to meet. Trump still had a pending lawsuit, but Georgia's Republican Secretary of State and Governor had already certified the statewide tally, confirming that Trump lost. When the GOP electors met at the Georgia State Capitol, they were joined by Trump campaign official and Trump campaign lawyer. Cross said this cements that the meeting was a campaign activity and not tied to the functions of the federal government. They were not Justice Department attorneys. They were not White House attorneys. They were campaign attorneys. There was not a federal official in the bunch, and that meeting was State House was coordinated with the campaign. That's your story on one of your co-defendants with Donald Trump and a Georgia state fake elector scheme. Yeah, sorry. If you're still there, you're sorry.
I'm still here. I didn't go anywhere. All right, in culture news, let us talk about the British Museum. They lost a bunch of items and now they're asking social media to help them find their stolen items, which is ironic because they also steal items from people. This is from Nadia Komami, arts and culture correspondent on The Guardian. Museum says 60 items have been returned to date and 300 are due to be returned soon. The British Museum has asked the public to help in identifying and recovering items believed to have been stolen from its collection. The museum said the majority of the missing items were from its gems and jewelry collection, including gold rings, earrings, bracelets, and necklaces, and were mostly from Greece and Rome. So maybe they just went back to Greece and Rome. It has provided images, it says, show items similar to those that are missing in hope that people will recognize them. Some of the jewelry is believed to date back to the late Bronze Age and the Hellenistic, about 15th to 11th century, and Roman periods. The British Museum disclosed last month that an estimated 2,000 artifacts had been taken over a significant period of time. An unnamed member of staff sacked, and the British Museum is taking legal action. In the fallout, the museum's director, Hartwig Fisher, and his deputy, Jonathan Williams, resigned. On Tuesday, the museum said that 60 items had been returned and 300 were due to be returned immediately. The pictures released show items ranging from a Roman sard gem engraved with representations of the Greco-Egyptian god Serapis and this Egyptian goddess Isis, a piece of blue glass showing a helmeted figure with a double axe killing a four-headed serpent, a Hellenistic oval stone engraved with an image of a young warrior on a rock, a Cypriot necklace with horned lions, head clasps, and a Cypriot gold earring in a twisted shape. George Osborne, the chair of the museum's trustees, said last month that the museum did not have a complete catalog of everything in its collection, amassed over several hundred years. Yeah, we just stole some stuff and said, I'll put it over there. I don't know. Someone with knowledge of what's not registered has a big advantage in removing some of those items, he said. Itai Gradel, a Dutch antiquities dealer, has previously said he bought scores of museum artifacts online, including on eBay. He said he alerted the British Museum to potential wrongdoing 2 years ago, but no action was taken. A Metropolitan Police investigation is underway, and a man was interviewed under caution on 23rd of August. An independent review into why the items were missing and what can be done in the future is being led by former trustee Sir Nigel Boardman, the Chief Constable of the British Transport Police, Lucy D'Orsi. The museum said it was using an international panel of experts, including James Ratcliffe of the Art Loss Register and Lena Albertson of the Association for the Research in Crimes Against Art to help recover the objects. The missing artifacts are on the Art Loss Register, a private database of lost, stolen, and looted art and antiquities. D'Orsi said she and Boardman were grateful for the support we have received from outside experts. We have seen an encouraging start to the recovery program and have been particularly impressed by the hard work and dedication of the British Museum staff working with us, she said. Ratcliffe said the British Museum's approach has carefully balanced the need to provide information to the public to assist the recovery efforts with the fact that providing too much detail risks playing into the hands of those who might act in bad faith. Thanks to our position as the principal due diligence resource of the art market and the experience in recovery of stolen art and cultural property, recovery of stolen art. Okay. The Art Loss Register has an unrivaled ability to assist with the museum's recovery program. We are delighted to provide our assistance on a pro bono basis to the excellent team at the museum to support their efforts. So, Good luck at the British Museum for finding their stolen stuff that they stole most likely from somebody else. On to this day in history.
Bought it, man. They acquired it. It wasn't stolen. They have an acquisition person who does things. All right. So it is what this day in history is. This day in history, 1540, the Jesuit order, founded by Saint Ignatius of Loyola, was approved by Pope Paul III in 1590, 12 days after being elected Pope. In other Pope news, Urban VII died, making his papacy the shortest in history. 12 days! Wow. In 1601, Louis XIII, King of France, from 1610 to 1643, was born. So he became king when he was 9, which happened a lot in those days. And in 1777, during the American Revolution, the Continental Congress, having fled to Philadelphia, held a session in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, making the city the capital of the American colonies for one day. In 1918, British forces attacking the Hindenburg Line in the final offensive in their Western Front during World War I. So we were closing out the World War I in this day in 1918. 1954, the landmark late evening talk show variety program The Tonight Show premiered with Steve Allen as the host. In 1962, Rachel Carson's Silent Spring was published and became one of the most influential books in the modern environmental movement and led to the banning of DDT. So write them books, man, write them books. Sorry to yell. I know I get cut off at a certain level. 1964, following the months of investigation into the assassination of U.S. President JFK, the Warren Commission released its findings. Ooh, they spent literally almost a year on it. Woohoo! And totally covered up. In 1996, the Taliban, led by Muammar Omar, seized the capital city of Kabul, declaring all of Afghanistan an Islamic state. The remnants of what we did to Afghanistan when we abandoned them after Russia invaded, basically. We helped them beat Russia and then abandoned them. So we're good at abandoning countries. 2008, Chinese astronaut Zhe Zhaijing performed China's first spacewalk. In 2019, a week of international climate change protests led by youth, notably Swedish activist Greta Thunberg, ended with millions having participated in the demonstrations. And this is Greta's day, I guess. Greta. And 1066 is our featured event. The Norman Conquest began on this day, 1066, after being delayed by bad weather. William, Duke of Normandy, embarked his army and set sail for the southeastern coast of England that would be known in history as the Norman Conquest. And our featured biography is Thomas Nast, American political caricaturist, our cartoonist. He was born on September 27th, 1840 in Landau, Germany, and died in December 7th, 1902 in Guayaquil, Ecuador. Birthdays today, other birthdays. Lil Wayne, American rapper, was born in 1982. Gwyneth Paltrow, American actress, was born in 1972. Steve Kerr, American basketball player and coach, was born on this day in 1965. Bhagat Singh, Indian revolutionary, was born in 1907. And Samuel Adams, American politician, brother to John Adams, American president, and also a maker of beer, was born on this day in 1722. And there goes the school bus. I had to open the door. It got a little warm in here. National Corned Beef Hash Day is today. So, man, leftover food stuff kind of thing. Corned beef hash. It's also World Dense Breast Day. Unfamiliar with it, but it appears to be something that has to do with having breast tissue that's too dense.
No.
Unfamiliar. National Women's Health and Fitness Day, which probably goes with that one a little bit anyway. And it's National Chocolate Milk Day. So add chocolate to your milk. National Day of Forgiveness. I forgive you. You're all forgiven. It's National Scarf Day, and it's National Crush a Can Day, and I still haven't found a can to crush, so back to you.
Okay.
And forgive me for not having a can. Forgive me.
National this has been Allison here from the Netherlands, where it's sunny outside, and we're going to, I don't know, it's my day off. I'm doing whatever I want today. Woohoo!
Ooh, sunny
we'll see
day.
tomorrow for Thursday, where we're going to dump some more news on you.
All right, and this is Roger from the United States, where it's not sunny, and the sun just came up because we're morning, and it's September 27th, 2027. The comprehensive news of planet Earth, the news that you don't know that you'd want to hear. September 27th, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.